I'm Jessie from Remodel Fitness, and I want to know how you would feel about being able to create stronger boundaries, assert yourself without overpowering others, give concrete language to your nebulous inner world, and get your authentic needs and desires met both by yourself and by others. I have a tool that I want to teach you that can do all that and more. And while it might not be easy, it's much simpler than you think. One thing that I've noticed in almost 9 years of working with women as a personal trainer and empowerment coach is that we often struggle with the ability to both fully understand and then advocate for our own needs and desires. We're often taught that it's more important to put other people's needs and desires ahead of our own, and it can be really difficult to unlearn those patterns. We struggle to assert ourselves, to create strong boundaries to protect our needs, and to ask for what we want. Often it's even a struggle to just understand what we want or need in the first place. But advocating for and understanding your own unique needs and desires is crucial for authentic self-care. Without those things, you'll constantly be at the mercy of everyone else's needs, and you'll end up drained, exhausted, unfulfilled, resentful, and wondering who you even are. One of the tools that I use to teach my clients how to change these patterns is the use of specific and vivid language. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Using specific and vivid language can be transformative, especially if, like many of my clients, you're used to using kind of vague and polite language to express yourself. Using specific and vivid language will help you recognize and articulate what you're feeling both physically and emotionally, which allows you to listen to your body better, trust yourself, recognize what you want, and then go after it with clarity. This practice has the power to transform both how you relate to yourself and how you communicate with others. Using specific and vivid language helps other people know exactly what to give you and how to treat you for you to show up as your best self. Now, what do I mean by specific and vivid language? In a way, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the conscious use of detailed, accurate, and colorful words to identify, explore, and ultimately share whatever you're experiencing. It's a way of bringing the authentic inner experience of what you're feeling into the external world or just into your own mind. And most people use pretty vague terminology when it comes to how they feel because they don't want to upset anyone or they assume other people will just automatically know what they mean. But vague language keeps us from feeling vulnerable, and it actually keeps us from ever feeling really seen or understood by other people. Not to mention the fact that using vague language over time actually makes it more difficult for our minds to recognize and understand how we feel because we're not used to searching for the detailed nuances to explain it. Specific and vivid language can make you feel vulnerable. But along with that vulnerability comes huge opportunities to give and receive truly nourishing gifts with others. A quick example of this would be the phrase, "I love you." I was once dating a guy who was uncomfortable using this phrase, and it hurt my feelings because I'd always assumed that "I love you" was the only way to express the big feeling that I felt. When I asked him why he didn't like using it, he said he just honestly wasn't sure what it meant. And when I thought about that, I was like, whoa, like, you're right. What does it mean? I realized I'd been using it to express so many different and unique sensations, and that he had no way of knowing which ones I meant in which moment. And I didn't know for anybody who'd said it to me, I didn't know what they meant. So from then on, I challenged myself to use language that more accurately represented what I was feeling in the moment, and so did he, and it was a fascinating experiment. We felt significantly closer to each other because we were being completely authentic and truthful, and we could understand exactly what the other person was feeling. Depending on the context of the desire to say something, whenever one of us had the impulse to say "I love you," we would say something that we really meant instead, like, "I'm so grateful we met," or "The way you look at me makes me feel like I exist," or "You're so sexy it feels unfair to everyone else on earth that they don't get to be with you." So there's nothing wrong with the word love, of course, but what I learned by using more specific and vivid language to express that is that we both were able to give and receive more love and more trust and more understanding. So I recommend trying this for yourself. I challenge you today to use more detailed, nuanced, and accurate language to replace old standards like "I love you," "I miss you," you look great, or even I'm sorry, and see what happens. And if you're struggling to come up with the right words, don't worry. There are no right words. It's just about challenging yourself to use different words instead of falling back on the vague or kind of cliche language that you're used to. And when in doubt, just use more words, because sometimes you just need more words to flow for your real point to come across. And for an even more powerful effect, try doing this exercise with heavier material. Instead of saying, you hurt my feelings, for example, you might say, when you said that thing, I suddenly felt like some annoying little sister who nobody likes, but you have to keep around, and it made me feel left out and insecure and lonely. So it's a lot of words to say kind of the same thing, but it's much more specific. And now this person would have the opportunity to address the exact issue you're having. And if they end up apologizing, their apology will be a lot more meaningful, because you'll know that they understand exactly what they're apologizing for. Whereas when someone says, like, oh, I'm sorry, after you say, that hurt my feelings, it can be difficult to believe them or feel reassured by it or really nourished by it, because your inner experience hasn't had the opportunity to be seen and understood. Therefore, the other person can't really know what they're apologizing for. So using specific and vivid language takes everything to a much deeper and richer level. If you start practicing with specific and vivid language, you'll notice how it automatically helps you create stronger boundaries. And this is a really big thing, because so many women struggle with how to create boundaries without hurting other people's feelings, or how to assert their needs while still allowing others the same courtesy. So specific and vivid language helps solve this problem, because you use your word choice to guide the conversation towards your needs without needing to come off as harsh or bullying or unkind. My favorite example of this recently was my brother put on an outfit, and he turned to me and said, hey Jess, does this outfit look completely absurd? And I thought about it for a moment, and I said, completely absurd? No. And his response was, okay, great. Any other adjective I can live with. So he used specific and vivid language to curate our conversation towards his exact needs. He had a very clear boundary around what he needed me to consider. But I never felt disrespected, because he wasn't overstepping on my rights in any way. If, however, he had said, does this look okay? I might have said something like, I don't know, it's pretty intense. Or, I don't know, maybe you should wear sleeves. I don't know, whatever I might have said. But he might have felt hurt or annoyed, because that's not really what he was looking for. And then I might have felt disrespected that he asked my opinion but then didn't take it. So instead of asking a question that left any room for that kind of confusion, he asked a really specific question that guided our experience together. So I was able to give him exactly what he needed, which felt great for me. And then he was able to get exactly what he needed, which felt great for him. So you can see that specific and vivid language is a win-win way of asserting yourself and your boundaries without stepping on other people's toes, without coming off as bossy or pushy, and without hurting other people's feelings. But that's not even the best part about it. The very best thing about starting to use specific and vivid language is what happens in your brain. And this is especially true when you're just using it for yourself, like in your journal or inner monologue, or anywhere else you're processing your thoughts and feelings. And that's because studies have shown that a person whose language includes more words for nuanced differences for things will actually be able to decipher between nuanced differences more easily. Now, this is a really, really big deal, since one of the biggest complaints I hear from women is that they literally can't tell what they're feeling or what they want. They struggle to listen to their bodies and listen to their hearts and listen to their intuition. And they can't tell the difference between nuanced physical and emotional states, like the difference between hungry and starving, for example, or the difference between sad and resentful. Practicing the use of specific and vivid language in your processing of what you're feeling physically and emotionally will make it literally easier for your brain to recognize and understand what you're feeling when you're feeling it. This leads to way more clarity, way more trust in yourself and your body, and a much, much better chance of actually getting what you want. Think of language like wine. At first, when you start drinking wine, you're kind of like, tastes like wine. And that's totally okay, but your experience of it is pretty one-dimensional at first. And then when you start training your mind to notice and give words to the nuanced differences in between each flavor note and each different kind of wine, your experience of drinking wine deepens and gets richer and more complex. And instead of wine, now you taste oak and tobacco and strawberry all bouncing around in different states and textures in your mouth. And the more you train your palate to recognize the nuanced flavor notes, the more three-dimensional and rich and rewarding your experience of drinking wine becomes. The same is true of the words you use to describe your world. When you use words like fine, good, tired, boring, your experience of those things is pretty one-dimensional and flat. And then once you recognize and describe the nuanced differences between each thing, you can suddenly taste different flavor notes of life, and your experience becomes significantly deeper, richer, more complex, more rewarding. And you become more present with each experience, really feeling it and living it deeply. So, how do you start practicing specific and vivid language for yourself? Personally, I recommend starting with your physical sensations since they're a little more concrete and easy to understand. Next time you have to pee, for example, pause and describe for yourself, written down if you can, exactly what it feels like to have to pee. Which, you would think you know that, but trying to give it words is a really interesting way of connecting to the physical sensation of it. So use as many words as you can, be as specific and creative and detailed as possible. Then do that same exercise when you feel hot or cold. Ask yourself, how do I know I'm hot? How do I know I'm cold? And then write down the answer, really give it words for what that feels like physically. What does tired feel like, for example, in your body? What does thirsty feel like in your body? Repeat this for every physical sensation you can. Then try doing the same exercise for your emotional sensations. Ask yourself exactly what it feels like for you to be sad. Where in your body do you experience that sensation? Every single emotion is physical. We feel them in our bodies, and while they feel completely different from person to person, your emotions will always show up with the same way for you. Meaning sadness is always going to feel like sadness for you, however you experience that. Maybe it's a cold, heavy pit in your stomach, or maybe it's a tightness and an aching in your chest. But whatever it is, it's always going to feel the same. I suggest writing these descriptive explorations down in a journal because committing to putting words on a page makes the language even more powerful and concrete, as opposed to just sort of saying them in your mind, answering questions in your mind or out loud. So first, write down what you're feeling emotionally using your old normal language. You might write, I'm annoyed. And then use as much detailed and accurate language as possible, answering the questions, how do I know I'm annoyed? What does annoyed feel like physically? Where in my body do I feel annoyed? And then repeat this exercise for every different emotion and sensation, and you'll find it becomes much, much easier to both recognize and understand yourself, and also make yourself and your needs clear to the people that you're trying to communicate with. All right, so in my next video for this 4-part series, I'm going to teach you exactly what to do with the painful and uncomfortable emotions and sensations that you'll discover if you start doing this, because you'll undoubtedly run into those feelings as you are exploring your world with language in this way. We all have dark material like jealousy, pain, fear, shame, and it can be really difficult to tolerate and face those feelings, so a lot of people try to completely ignore or repress theirs. That habit of numbing them down makes it damn near impossible to fully access your emotional life, no matter what kind of language you're using. So that's why my next video is called How to Fall in Love with Your Dark Material, and I'll give you some concrete ways to handle, understand, and even find love for your darker experiences and emotions. If you dig this video, please leave a comment letting me know what you think, and I cannot wait to share the next video with you.